Part 5. The human condition Earth had never seen a fleet like this. 200 Vorthax warships emerged from slipspace in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls reflecting the light of the sun, turning the space around Earth's orbit into a field of deadly rainbows. At their head was a vessel so massive it had its own gravity well. The flagship of Shatter of Worlds, supreme commander of the Vorthax military, Admiral Daejung stood in Earth's orbital defense station, watching the armada appear on his screens, and knew that this was the moment that would define humanity's future. Either they would prove they deserved to survive, or they would be wiped from the galaxy. Shatter of Worlds transmission came through, his crystalline voice resonating through every communication system on Earth and its orbital facilities. Humans of Earth, you have violated the armament limitation protocols. You have constructed illegal warships. You have attacked collective-recognized raiders in sovereign territory. For these crimes, the Galactic Collective demands the immediate surrender of all military vessels and the arrest of all individuals involved in this conspiracy. Daejung took a breath, knowing that his next words would echo through history. This is Admiral Daejung Choi of Earth's Defense Command. Shatter of Worlds, we acknowledge the treaty violations. We do not acknowledge your authority to punish them. You do not have a choice in this matter. Every being has a choice. You can enforce your will through violence, but that doesn't make it just. The treaty you hide behind was designed to keep humanity weak while others remain strong. It was written to protect the powerful and abandon the defenseless. We watched our people die while the collective stood by and did nothing, so we stopped asking for permission to survive. Your crimes cannot be excused by your grievances, and your law cannot be respected when it serves only to enable murder. Daejung leaned forward, his voice carrying the weight of a species that had decided enough was enough. You want our ships? Come and take them. But know this, humanity did not crawl from the caves of Earth to bow before those who would watch us die. You will find us harder to break than you imagine. Shatter of Worlds considered this for a moment. Very well. You have chosen extinction. The collective will remember you as a cautionary tale. The Vorthax fleet began moving toward Earth, weapons charging, ready to begin the bombardment that would end humanity's brief moment of rebellion. But they were not ready for what happened next. From the Kuiper Belt, from the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, from orbital facilities around every planet in the solar system, ships began to emerge. Not the 12 vessels from the ghost yards, not even 50. Over 200 human warships appeared, some fully operational, some held together by determination and emergency repairs, but all of them armed, all of them crewed, and all of them ready to fight. Shatter of Worlds stared at the display in shock. This is impossible. Our intelligence said, your intelligence was wrong. Minji's voice cut through the channel. She was aboard the Taeguk, which was now positioned at the head of the human fleet. We didn't have 12 ghost yards, we had 70. Every asteroid field in human space has been building ships for years. You thought you were controlling us? You were just teaching us to work in the dark. But humanity had one more surprise, one more piece of the puzzle that would change everything. Director Sang-hee had been busy during the battle at New Jeju, and now she unleashed years of collected intelligence. Every data network in the galaxy suddenly received the same package. Classified documents proving that the Vorthax had been manipulating the Krell, providing them with targeting information for human colonies. Messages showing Vorthax officials deliberately slowing collective response times. Financial records proving bribes paid to council members to vote for ever stricter restrictions on human military development. The evidence was undeniable, and it was everywhere. Every species in the collective saw it. Every news organization broadcast it. The Vorthax had not just been enforcing an unfair law. They had been orchestrating the deaths of thousands to justify that law's existence. Ambassador Yuna Lee stood before the Galactic Council, which had convened an emergency session, and her voice was cold with righteous fury. For years I believed in the collective. I believed in the treaty. I believed that peace required sacrifice. I watched my people die and told myself it was necessary for the greater good. But there is no good in a system that actively murders those it claims to protect. She pulled up the documents on the main display. The Vorthax have been playing us all. They restricted humanity because they feared competition. They orchestrated attacks to justify our oppression. They turned the collective's laws into weapons of genocide. And they did it because they believed they could, because they believed no one would stop them. An Illiman representative, Whisper Through Stars, spoke softly. If these documents are authentic, this is a crime against the very foundation of the collective. They are authentic, Una confirmed. And humanity has paid the price for that crime in blood. No more, we wrote our own laws now. We built our own ships. We took back our right to survive, and we will never ask permission again. In Earth orbit, the battle began. The Vorthax fleet fired first, their energy weapons lancing through space toward the human vessels. But the human ships had learned from New Jeju. They activated their gravity sheaths in unison, creating a network of overlapping gravitational fields that bent space itself around Earth. The Vorthax weapons struck the barrier and simply ceased to exist, their energy absorbed and redistributed into the field. Impossible, Shatter of Worlds whispered. No, Captain Isol replied, her ship at the center of the formation. Just human. The human fleet didn't return fire immediately. Instead, they waited, letting the Vorthax pour more energy into their attacks, watching the crystalline ships commit to the assault. And then, when the moment was right, the humans attacked, but they didn't attack the Vorthax fleet. They attacked the space around it. Minji had spent years studying gravitational physics, and she'd learned something the rest of the galaxy had missed. Space itself could be weaponized. The human ships coordinated their gravity drives, creating localized distortions in the fabric of reality. The Vorthax ships, caught in the middle, suddenly found their navigation systems failing, their weapons targeting the wrong coordinates, their formation falling apart as the space they were moving through became unpredictable and hostile. It was like fighting in a funhouse mirror, where nothing was where it appeared to be, and the Vorthax, for all their technological sophistication, had no defense against an attack that came from reality itself. Several Vorthax ships collided with each other, their sensors telling them they were miles apart, when they were actually seconds from impact. Others fired at human vessels only to hit their own allies as the gravitational distortions bent their shots back on themselves. And then, a new fleet arrived. The Krell war chief Garen had escaped New Jeju with his life and his shame. He'd returned to his people and told them of the humans who had defeated him, of the species that the galaxy thought was weak, but who fought with a ferocity and innovation that demanded respect. The Krell respected strength above all else, and they recognized it in humanity. 40 Krell warships dropped out of slipspace and positioned themselves alongside the human fleet. Garen's transmission was simple. Humans. You fight with honor. You fight with courage. The Krell stand with those who earn respect through battle. We stand with you. Shatter of Worlds watched his perfect attack fall apart. The humans had weapons he couldn't counter. They had allies he hadn't expected. And they had something else. Something he'd never understood. They had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. All ships, focus fire on Earth itself. He ordered in desperation. If we cannot defeat their fleet, we will destroy their world. But before the Vorthax could execute that order, more fleets arrived. Illumined vessels, their gaseous forms shimmering in the light of battle. Ships from a dozen smaller species, all of them coming to witness what happened when a species decided that survival mattered more than laws written by the powerful to control the weak. Whisper Through Stars transmitted to Shatter of Worlds. Stand down. The collective has voted. The Vorthax military presence around Earth is no longer sanctioned. If you fire on civilian populations, you will answer for war crimes. Shatter of Worlds looked at his screens. He saw the human fleet, impossibly large, impossibly strong. He saw former allies abandoning him. He saw the evidence of Vorthax crimes being broadcast across the galaxy, and he understood that he had already lost, not just this battle, but the war for the galaxy's conscience. Vorthax fleet, withdraw, he said quietly. The crystalline ships began to pull back, returning to slipspace in orderly retreat. The Battle of Sol was over, and humanity had won without destroying a single enemy ship. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council convened to rewrite the armament limitation protocols. Ambassador Una Lee, no longer the idealistic diplomat who believed in peace at any cost, helped draft the new laws. This time they were fair. This time, every species had the same rights and the same restrictions. This time, no one would be deliberately kept weak. Part 4, The Defiance. The Krell war chief Garen stood on his command deck and watched New Jeju burn with satisfaction. His fleet had been raiding human colonies for months now, always careful to strike where the collective forces were too far away to respond. It was profitable work. The humans built good things and they were weak. The treaty had made sure of that. Prepare for final assault, he ordered his crew. Strip anything valuable, then destroy what remains. Leave no witnesses. His tactical officer suddenly stiffened. War Chief, we have new contacts emerging from slipspace. Unknown configuration. 7 ships. No, wait. The officer's voice rose in confusion. Their signatures are strange. They read as small vessels, but they're massive. Show me. The view screen flickered and Garen saw them. Human ships, but not like any human ships he'd seen before. They were sleek and dangerous looking, and they were moving with a speed and grace that cargo freighters didn't possess. At their head was a massive battle cruiser, its hull so dark it seemed to eat the light around it. Receiving transmission from the lead vessel, his communications officer said. Garen activated the channel. A human woman appeared on the screen, wearing a military uniform, her face hard and cold. Krell vessels, this is Captain Isil Yang of the Earth warship Indomitable Dawn. You are ordered to power down your weapons and withdraw from New Jeju immediately. Garen laughed. Human, your people are forbidden from building warships. Your threat is meaningless. Surrender and we might let you live. We stopped asking for permission, Isil replied. Last chance. Withdraw or be destroyed. You have 7 ships. I have 15. And your ships are illegal toys that will be confiscated by the collective the moment they see them. You've already lost. Isil's expression didn't change. No, you have. The transmission cut off and the human fleet attacked. The Indomitable Dawn moved first, its gravity sheath activating with a visible ripple in space itself. The Krell ships fired their weapons, massive plasma cannons that could vaporize asteroids. The shots should have torn the human battlecruiser apart. Instead, the shots curved around the ship, bent by gravitational forces that shouldn't exist, and dissipated harmlessly into space. Before the Krell could even understand what had happened, the Indomitable Dawn returned fire. The human ship's weapons were different from anything the Krell had encountered. They weren't plasma or lasers or missiles. They were focused gravitational beams that reached out and grabbed the nearest Krell cruiser, twisting its hull like paper in a child's hands. The cruiser exploded, torn apart by forces it had no defense against. All ships, engage, Garen roared, but his fleet was already in chaos. Commander Tae Yang led her fighter wing out of the Indomitable Dawn's launch bays, small black craft that the Krell sensors could barely track. They moved like angry hornets swarming around the massive Krell ships, targeting weak points with precision that spoke of years of training. One fighter dove straight at a Krell cruiser's bridge, the Krell defense systems tracking it, firing, missing as the small craft jinked and rolled. At the last second, the fighter unleashed its payload, a gravitational mine that attached to the hull and imploded, creating a miniature black hole that sucked the entire front section of the ship into itself before collapsing. That's 12 for me, Tae Yang shouted over the comm. Who's keeping score? Less talking, more shooting, her wingman replied, even as his own fighter crippled another Krell ship's engines. The 2 other completed battlecruisers, the Taeguk and Hyunwoo's Iron Tiger, were making their own devastating contributions. Minji had integrated herself into the Taeguk's crew as its science officer, and she was using the ship's experimental systems in ways that made the Krell think they were fighting ghosts. The Taeguk appeared on sensors in 5 different locations at once, each image firing real weapons, each one impossible to distinguish from the others. The Krell ships didn't know which target to shoot at, and by the time they figured it out, the real Taeguk had already destroyed 3 of their vessels. Even the half-finished ships were contributing. Attached to heavy tugs, unable to maneuver properly, they were still armed and their crews were still determined. One incomplete cruiser used its construction plasma cutters, tools meant for shaping metal, as improvised beam weapons, slicing through a Krell ship's shields and hull with industrial power that hadn't been designed for combat but worked beautifully anyway. Another ship, lacking proper weapons entirely, used its cargo manipulator arms meant for moving asteroids to grab a Krell fighter and physically crush it like an empty can. Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Iron Tiger, watching the battle unfold, feeling something he hadn't felt since the day his sister died. Hope. Target their command ship, he ordered. If we take down Garen, the rest might break. Sir, we're getting power fluctuations in the gravity drive. We're not at full capacity. Then we use what we have. All power to forward weapons. Get me a firing solution on that flagship. The Iron Tiger dove through the combat zone, taking hits that would have destroyed a normal ship. But the gravity sheath absorbed the energy, redistributed it, turned the enemy's own weapons into power for the human vessel. It was like fighting something that grew stronger the more you hurt it. Garen watched his fleet falling apart and felt something he'd rarely experienced. Fear. These humans weren't supposed to be able to do this. They were supposed to be weak, controlled, limited by the treaty that kept them in their place. But these ships, these weapons, this coordination, it spoke of years of preparation of a species that had been planning this moment while the galaxy thought they were helpless. All ships, retreat, Garen ordered. Fall back to Yo. The Iron Tiger's main weapon fired and Garen's flagship died. The gravitational beam punched through shields, through hull, through the reactor core at the ship's heart. The flagship exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations, taking Garen and half his crew with it. The remaining Krell ships broke and ran, jumping to slipspace in disarray, leaving behind their dead and their dignity. Captain Isel opened a channel to the colony. New Jeju, this is the Indomitable Dawn. The threat has been neutralized. Please respond. There was a long pause. Then a young woman's voice, shaking with emotion and disbelief. Indomitable Dawn, this is Private Yunha Bay. I don't understand. Who are you? Where did you come from? We're humans, Private. Just like you. And we came from the place where we've been preparing for this day since the galaxy decided we weren't allowed to protect ourselves. As the human fleet moved into defensive positions around New Jeju, as rescue operations began for the damaged colony, as the reality of what had just happened started to sink in, the footage of the battle was already spreading across the galaxy. Every news network, every data hub, every communication system was suddenly flooded with images of human warships destroying a Krell raiding fleet. The collective was stunned. The Vorthax were outraged, and humanity, scattered across 100 worlds, watched and understood that everything had changed. On Unity Prime Station, Ambassador Yuna Lee watched the battle footage in her quarters. She saw the ships that shouldn't exist. She saw humans fighting with weapons they weren't supposed to have. She saw the treaty she'd believed in being broken into 1,000 pieces, and she smiled. But in Vorthax space, in a crystalline palace that orbited a dying star, Shatter of Worlds received the news and called for his fleet. These humans have declared themselves enemies of order. They will be made an example of. Prepare the Armada. We go to Earth, and we will show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the collective. 200 Vorthax warships began to move, heading toward humanity's homeworld, ready to end the rebellion before it could truly begin. And on Earth, Admiral Daijung received the warning from his scouts and knew that the real test was about to begin. The Battle of New Jeju had been humanity's first victory. The Battle of Sol would determine whether it was also their last. Part 3. Steel and Shadow's crystal voice of dawn was beautiful in the way that diamonds are beautiful. Cold, hard, and sharp enough to cut. The Vorthax was a being of living crystal, facets catching the light of distant stars, his voice resonating like bells through the communication systems of his flagship. These humans believe they can deceive the collective, he said to his subordinates. They are children playing at rebellion. We will find their illegal construction. We will confiscate their toys. And we will remind them of their place. His fleet moved through the Kuiper Belt like sharks through dark water, sensors sweeping every asteroid, every piece of space debris. They were thorough. They were efficient. And they were exactly where Director Sang-hee wanted them. On the bridge of his command ship, hidden deep within a different asteroid, Admiral Daejung watched the Vorthax fleet's movements on holographic displays. Beside him, Sang-hee worked her controls with the precision of a surgeon. He's taking the bait, she murmured. I'm letting him intercept a coded transmission. Not too obvious. Just encrypted enough to make him think he's being clever by breaking it. What does the transmission say? Coordinates to the decoy site. Supply manifest showing construction materials. Enough to prove treaty violations, but nothing that suggests the scale of what we're really doing. She smiled. In about 10 minutes, Crystal Voice of Dawn is going to think he's the smartest being in the galaxy. 10 minutes later, the Vorthax fleet changed course, heading directly for the decoy asteroid. Daejung let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. But while the ghost yards celebrated their narrow escape, Another human colony was about to face the nightmare that had destroyed Hyunwoo's family. Private Yuna Bay was 19 years old, fresh out of basic training and stationed on New Jeju, a colony world that humanity had spent 30 years terraforming into something resembling Earth. She was on watch duty when the sensors picked up the incoming ships. "Sergeant, I'm showing 15 contacts on approach vector. They're not broadcasting collective identification codes." Her sergeant, a grizzled veteran named Kwan, moved to her station and looked at the readings. His face went pale. "Sound the alarm. Those are Krell signatures. Get everyone to the shelters now." The colony's defense grid activated, but it was a joke. The treaty said colonies could have defensive weapons, but only small ones. Nothing that could really hurt a warship. The Krell knew this. They always knew. Yunha ran through the streets, helping evacuate civilians as the first Krell ships entered orbit overhead. She looked up and saw them massive and terrible, blotting out the sun. Then the bombardment began. Fire fell from the sky. Buildings that had taken years to construct vanished in seconds. Yuna saw a school collapse, a hospital burn, a residential block turned into a crater. She saw people she knew, friends she'd made, torn apart by weapons that the collective said were necessary for peace. She managed to reach her communication station and sent out a distress call, her hands shaking as she worked the controls. "This is New Jeju Colony. We are under attack by Krell forces. 15 heavy cruisers. Casualties are extreme. Request immediate military assistance." The response came back from the Collective Fleet Command. Message received. Defensive forces will be deployed within standard response time frame. Estimated arrival, 6 days. 6 days. They'd all be dead in 6 hours. Yuna kept transmitting, kept sending footage of the destruction, kept begging for help that wouldn't come. And light years away on Station Unity Prime, Ambassador Yuna Lee watched the transmissions with horror. She burst into the Galactic Council chambers, not caring about protocol, not caring that she was interrupting a session. The council members, representatives of a dozen different species, looked at her with various expressions of surprise and annoyance. "The Krell are attacking New Jeju," Yuna said, her voice shaking with rage and grief. "Right now. 40,000 colonists are dying. We need to send help immediately." A Vorthax counselor, Shatter of Thoughts, spoke with crystalline clarity. "Ambassador Lee, the proper procedures must be followed. We have protocols for responding to such incidents. Your protocols will let everyone die. The protocols ensure order. Without order, we have chaos. Without speed, we have mass murder." Yuna pulled up the footage Yunha was transmitting, projecting it on the chamber's main screen. The council members watched as New Jeju burned. Some looked away. Others seemed unmoved. "I am formally requesting immediate military intervention under the Collective Charter, Article 17, which allows for emergency response to genocidal attacks." An Illiman representative, its gaseous form shimmering in its containment field, spoke in soft tones. "The article requires unanimous council approval. We must debate the merits. People are dying while you debate." Shatter of Thoughts leaned forward. "Perhaps, Ambassador, if your people had not been so aggressive in the past, they would not find themselves in such positions now. The treaty exists to prevent violence. Your people brought this upon themselves." Yuna stared at the Vorthax counselor, understanding flooding through her. They weren't going to help. They were never going to help. The treaty wasn't about peace. It was about control, and humanity was being punished for being strong enough to threaten that control. She left the chamber in silence, her idealism shattered, her faith in the collective dead. In her quarters, she recorded a message and sent it to Earth, knowing it would end her career. "They will not help. They will never help. We are alone." At the ghost yards, Hyunwoo received the transmission from New Jeju while inspecting one of the half-completed warships. He watched the footage of the colony burning. He watched the Krell ship systematically destroying everything humanity had built there, and he made a decision. He found Admiral Daejung in the command center. "We have to launch. The ships aren't ready. Only 3 are fully operational. The rest are at 60 to 80% completion at best. Then we launch with 3. We launch with 1. We launch with whatever we have, because if we don't, New Jeju becomes another grave." Minji joined them, her face grim. "He's right. We built these ships to protect our people. If we wait for them to be perfect, we've failed before we've started. If we launch now, the collective will know what we've built. There'll be no hiding, No second chances. There are no second chances anyway, Hyunwoo said. Crystal Voice of Dawn found the decoy. But how long before he starts wondering if there's more? How long before another colony burns? We built these ships for a reason. It's time to use them. Daejung stood silent for a long moment. Then he turned to his communications officer. Send a message to all Ghost Yard's facilities. Priority 1. Begin launch procedures on all operational vessels. Scramble fighter wings. Plot a course for New Jeju. Sir, what about the incomplete ships? Attach them to heavy tugs. If they can't fly on their own, we'll drag them. Even unfinished, they might make a difference. He turned to Hyunwoo. You wanted this. Now you're going to help lead it. Captain Park, you'll command the Iron Tiger. She's not pretty, but she'll fight. Throughout the Ghost Yards, alarms sounded. Crews that had been building in secret for years suddenly shifted to combat preparation. Ships that had never seen open space were moved out of their asteroid hiding places. The 3 completed Taeguk-class battlecruisers powered up their gravity drives, their hulls gleaming with dark, light-absorbing plating that made them nearly invisible against the black of space. Commander Tae Yang assembled her fighter pilots. All right, people, this is it. This is what we've been training for. The Krell think they're attacking defenseless colonists. Let's show them what happens when humans stop playing by rules that were designed to kill us. Captain Isul Yang, commander of the lead battlecruiser Indomitable Dawn, sat in her captain's chair and looked at her crew. I won't lie to you. What we're about to do is illegal. The collective will call us criminals. They might try to destroy us, but there are 40,000 people on New Jeju who are dying right now because the collective values rules more than lives. We're not going to let that stand. The fleet launched from the Ghost Yards like a swarm of metal insects moving at speeds that should have been impossible for ships their size. The gravity sheaths that Minji had designed didn't just compress their spatial signatures. They let them bend space itself, moving through the universe like stones skipping across water. And on New Jeju, as the Krell prepared for their final bombardment, Private Yunhebei transmitted one last message. If anyone can hear this, if anyone cares, please help us. We don't want to die alone. The fleet received the message as they entered slipspace, racing toward a battle that would change the galaxy forever. And behind them, Crystal Voice of Dawn stood in the decoy facility, triumphant in his discovery, unaware that humanity had just stopped hiding. Part 2. The Ghost Yards. The asteroid tumbled through space like any other rock in the Kuiper Belt, cold and forgotten at the edge of the solar system. But inside, it was alive with light and motion and the sound of construction that never stopped. Hyunwoo stood on a metal platform, looking out over the massive cavern that had been carved into the asteroid's heart. Below him, robotic arms moved in perfect coordination, welding hull plates onto the skeleton of something that shouldn't exist. A warship. A real warship, not the toy boats the treaty allowed humans to build. Beautiful, isn't she? Minji stood beside him, her eyes gleaming with pride. She's illegal, Hyunwoo said, but there was no condemnation in his voice. Only wonder. She's necessary. Minji pulled up a holographic display and the ship rotated in the air between them. The Taeguk-class battlecruiser, named after the symbol on our flag. She measures exactly 499 meters in registered dimensional space. The treaty limit is 500 meters. Exactly. But here's the clever part. Minji expanded the display. We use gravity sheath technology to compress the ship's spatial signature. To any scanner in the galaxy, she registers as under the limit. But her actual functional size is over 1,500 meters. She can carry weapons that would make a Vorthax dreadnought think twice. Hyunwoo stared at the design. How is that even possible? Because I asked the question everyone else was too afraid to ask. What if space itself could be bent? The collective has been using gravity drives for centuries. But they never thought to weaponize the principle. Humans did, she smiled. We're good at turning peaceful technology into weapons. It's one of the things that scares them about us. A door opened behind them and a man in an admiral's uniform walked onto the platform. Hyunwoo recognized him immediately and snapped to attention. Admiral Daejung Choi, head of Earth's diplomatic fleet. The man who commanded every legal military vessel humanity possessed. At ease, Captain. Daejung's voice was tired. We're all criminals here. Sir, I didn't know you were involved. I've been involved since the beginning. Who do you think has been protecting this place? Every time a collective inspector gets too curious, I send them somewhere else. Every time resources go missing from official shipyards, I adjust the paperwork. I've been breaking the treaty for 15 years. Park, I'm just better at hiding it than most. Minji brought up another display, showing multiple asteroid facilities scattered throughout the Kuiper Belt. We have 12 sites like this one. Each building, one ship. We've been at it for 8 years and we're finally close to completion. How many people know about this? Hyunwoo asked. About 3,000 spread across all the sites. Engineers, pilots, construction workers. All volunteers. All willing to risk everything for this. Daejong walked to the railing and looked down at the ship being built below. Because we all know what happens if we don't. We all have someone we've lost to Krell raids. We all have friends and colonies that the collective won't protect. A young woman in a pilot's flight suit approached them. She moved with the confident swagger of someone who'd never met a challenge she couldn't handle. Admiral, the test fighters are ready for another run. Captain Park, this is Commander Tae-Yang Kim. Best pilot in the Ghost Yards, though you wouldn't know it from her humility. Tae-Yang grinned. I'm plenty humble, sir. I just also happen to be correct about my skills. She turned to Hyunwoo. You're the one who lost family at the colony raid? Yes. Good. We need people who remember why we're doing this. Too easy to get caught up in the engineering and forget there are lives at stake. She gestured toward the hangar bay. Want to see what we're building? They followed her through corridors carved into solid rock, past living quarters where workers slept in shifts, past cafeterias where meals were synthesized from ice and minerals mined from the asteroids themselves. Everything here was built from nothing, hidden from the galaxy's eyes, maintained by people who believed that survival mattered more than rules. The hangar bay was enormous, and it was filled with small, deadly-looking craft. They were sleek and angular, painted in matte black that seemed to swallow light. Ghost fighters, Tae-Yang explained. Fast, stealthy, and equipped with weapons that punch way above their weight class. Each one is technically within treaty limits if you squint hard enough at the specifications. Together, they're a nightmare. An older man approached them, his hands stained with grease and his face creased with concentration. Commander, the new targeting system is installed on Unit 7. Ready for testing when you are. Thanks, Jiwon. Tae-Yang turned back to them. That's Jiwon Shin, our robotics specialist. He's the one who figured out how to make the construction automated enough that we could build all this without 10,000 workers. Jiwon wiped his hands on a rag. The hardest part wasn't the automation. It was hiding it. Every robot, every automated system, every piece of equipment here is registered as commercial mining gear. If inspectors scan the asteroids, all they see are legitimate mining operations. Except we're not mining ore, Minji added. We're mining freedom. A klaxon suddenly blared through the facility. Everyone froze. Red lights began flashing along the corridors. A voice came over the intercom. Alert. Collective inspection fleet detected at outer perimeter. Distance 4 astronomical units and closing. Estimated time to arrival 72 hours. Repeat inspection fleet inbound. Daejung's face went hard. I didn't authorize any inspections. Who's commanding the fleet? A woman's voice answered, coming from a different part of the facility through a comm link. According to our intelligence, it's Crystal Voice of Dawn, Vorthax Inspector General. He's brought 20 ships with him. Hyunwoo knew that name. Everyone did. Crystal Voice of Dawn was famous for his hatred of humans, his belief that humanity should never have been allowed into the collective. If he found the Ghost Yards, it wouldn't just mean the end of the project. It would mean war. We can't let him find this place, Minji said quietly. If he does, they'll destroy it. They'll destroy everything we've built. We could run, Jiwon suggested. Take what we have and scatter. Hide the ships in deep space. They're not finished, Tae-Yang countered. Most of them can't even fly yet. We'd be abandoning years of work. Daejung stood silent for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he turned to a woman who had just entered the hangar, a severe-looking officer with sharp eyes. Director Sang-hee, tell me you have something we can use. Director Sang-hee Moon ran intelligence operations for the Ghost Yards. She was the one who tracked collective movements, who warned them when danger was coming, who kept them one step ahead of discovery. She pulled out a datapad and brought up star charts. I have something better than information, Admiral. I have a plan. She highlighted a different asteroid cluster, one that was legitimately being used for mining. 3 months ago, we started a decoy operation here. Built some small facilities. Started some construction that technically violates the treaty, but in minor ways. Nothing like what we're really doing, but enough to be interesting if someone went looking. You want to give them the decoy? Hyun-woo said, understanding. Exactly. We let them find it. They get their treaty violation. They get to feel superior and they go home happy. Meanwhile, the real ghost yards stay hidden. It's risky, Dae-jung said. If Crystal Voice of Dawn suspects it's a trick, he'll tear apart every asteroid in the belt looking for the truth. He won't suspect, Sang-hee replied, because I'm going to make sure he thinks he's cleverer than us. I'm going to let him intercept communications about the decoy site. I'm going to make him think he discovered it on his own. His ego will do the rest, Minji nodded slowly. It could work. The Vorthax think we're primitive. They won't expect this level of deception. Then we do it, Dae-jung decided. Sang-hee set it up. Make it convincing. Everyone else keep working. We don't slow down. We don't show fear. And in 72 hours we make Crystal Voice of Dawn think he's won. As the meeting broke up and everyone returned to their stations, Hyun-woo found himself standing alone with Minji, looking at the half-built warship below them. Do you think it'll work? He asked. I think we don't have a choice, she replied. But that's the thing about humans, isn't it? We're at our best when we don't have choices. When the universe backs us into a corner, we don't surrender. We build something the universe has never seen before. And we fight our way out. The construction continued. Robots working through the artificial night. Human hands guiding the creation of ships that would either save humanity or doom them all. And in the darkness beyond the asteroid, a Vorthax fleet approached, confident in its superiority, unaware that it was walking into a trap set by the very species it had tried to control. The ghost yards waited, silent and hidden, while humanity prepared for the confrontation that would change everything. They banned humans from building warships, we defied them. A HFY Sci-Fi Story outline in 5 parts. Part 1. The Treaty of Broken Star setting. The year is 2847. Humanity has been part of the Galactic Collective for exactly 100 years. After a devastating war against the reptilian Krell Empire that nearly tore the galaxy apart, all spacefaring civilizations signed the Armament Limitation Protocols, a treaty that strictly regulated military construction. Main characters: Captain Hyun-woo Park, a decorated war veteran in his late 40s, scarred by the Krell War, commands the civilian freighter Morning Calm. Dr. Minji Kang, a brilliant aerospace engineer and physicist, blacklisted by the Collective for dangerous research. Admiral Dae-jung Choi, head of Earth's diplomatic fleet, publicly supports the treaty but privately harbors doubts. Ambassador Yuna Lee, humanity's representative to the Galactic Council, idealistic and believes in peaceful cooperation. Key plot points. The Galactic Council, dominated by the crystalline Vorthax and the gaseous Illumin species, imposes additional restrictions, specifically targeting humanity. Humans are forbidden from constructing any vessel larger than 500 meters or mounting weapons above Class II defensive systems. The justification: humanity's aggressive nature and rapid technological advancement pose a systemic risk. Other species face no such restrictions. The Vorthax maintain massive dreadnoughts. The Illumin possess planet crackers. Captain Hyun-woo witnesses Krell raiders attacking human colonies on the frontier. His calls for help are ignored by collective forces, arriving only after the devastation. His ship, deliberately underarmed due to treaty restrictions, can only evacuate survivors. The incident kills 40,000 colonists, including Hyun-woo's sister and her family. Ending, Hook Hyun-woo is approached by Dr. Minji Kang, who reveals she's been secretly designing warships in violation of the treaty. She needs his help to build them. Part 2. The Ghost Yard setting, the Kuiper Belt, beyond Neptune's orbit. A network of hidden asteroid facilities that humanity has secretly maintained since before the treaty. New characters: Commander Tae-yang Kim, young hotshot pilot, leads the experimental fighter wing. Engineer Ji-won Shin, robotics specialist who designs automated construction systems. Director Sang-hee Moon, intelligence operative who has been gathering evidence of collective betrayals. Key plot points. Hyun-woo agrees to help Minji and brings her to the Ghost Yards, illegal shipbuilding facilities operated by a shadow faction within Earth's military. Admiral Dae-jung reveals he's been quietly supporting the project for years, diverting resources and protecting the operation from collective inspectors. Minji unveils her designs. The Taeguk-class battlecruisers, ships that use revolutionary gravity sheath technology to appear smaller on sensors while housing devastating firepower. The technology exploits a loophole. The ships technically measure under 500 meters in registered dimensional space, while being functionally 3 times larger. Construction begins on 12 vessels using automated systems and mining drones disguised as commercial equipment. Director Sang-hee presents classified intelligence. The Vorthax have been manipulating the Krell, encouraging their raids on human space to justify eventual human pacification and absorption into Vorthax territories. Ambassador Yuna discovers the project and confronts the conspirators. Torn between her oath to uphold the treaty and the evidence of collective corruption, ending Hookah Collective Inspection Fleet, led by a zealous Vorthax enforcer named Crystal Voice of Dawn, arrives at the Ghost Yard's outer perimeter ahead of schedule. The humans have 72 hours before discovery. Part 3. Steel and Shadow setting multiple locations. Ghost Yards under threat. The Galactic Council chambers on Station Unity Prime. And the human colony world of New Jeju under Krell assault. New characters: Crystal Voice of Dawn, Vorthax Inspector General, Crystalline being who resonates with contempt for lesser species. Private Yuna Bay, young Marine stationed on New Jeju, one of the few survivors who witnesses the colony's fall. Captain Isul Yang, commander of the nearly complete battlecruiser Indomitable Dawn. Key plot points: Admiral Daejung deploys a brilliant deception. He allows Crystal Voice of Dawn to discover an illegal construction site that's actually a decoy facility building treaty-compliant patrol boats with minor violations. The Vorthax inspector, satisfied with his discovery, celebrates his success while the real Ghost Yards continue operation. Meanwhile, New Jeju comes under sustained Krell attack. The colony's distress calls are again delayed by collective bureaucracy. Ambassador Yuna makes an impassioned plea to the Council for immediate military aid. She's denied and told defensive forces will arrive within standard response time frame. 6 days. Private Yuna transmits footage of the massacre as it happens. The images galvanize Earth's population, sparking massive protests at collective embassies. Hyunwoo makes a fateful decision. Launch the ships now, even though only 3 are fully operational, and the rest are at 60–80% completion. The Indomitable Dawn, Taeguk, and Iron Tiger launch from the Ghost Yards, along with 4 half-finished vessels towed by heavy tugs. Ending Hook, the human fleet enters slipspace, racing toward New Jeju. Crystal Voice of Dawn receives a transmission from his homeworld. Unidentified human warships detected. This constitutes treaty violation. You are authorized to use lethal force. Part 4. The Defiant setting New Jeju system and surrounding space. The colony burns while Krell warships orbit triumphantly. Key plot points: the human fleet arrives to find 15 Krell heavy cruisers stripping New Jeju of resources. The Krell commander, confident in his numerical superiority, demands human surrender. Captain Isul refuses. The Battle of New Jeju begins. The Taeguk-class ships prove devastating. Their gravity sheath technology allows them to absorb and redirect energy weapons, create localized gravitational anomalies that tear apart enemy ships, project themselves as multiple targets on enemy sensors. Commander Tae Yang's fighter wing, launched from the Indomitable Dawn, employs guerrilla tactics learned from old Earth military history. Despite being outnumbered, the human ships systematically dismantle the Krell fleet using superior coordination, tactical innovation, and sheer determination. Even the half-finished vessels contribute, using construction equipment as improvised weapons. Plasma cutters become beam weapons. Cargo manipulators crush Krell fighters. The tide turns when Minji activates the Taeguk's experimental gravity cannon, creating a localized singularity that consumes the Krell flagship. The surviving Krell ships flee. New Jeju is saved, though heavily damaged. News of the victory spreads across the galaxy within hours. The collective is stunned. Humanity violated the treaty, but saved 300,000 lives the collective abandoned. Ending Hook, a massive Vorthax armada, 200 ships strong, emerges from slipspace around Earth. Led by Crystal Voice of Dawn's superior, Shatter of Worlds, the ultimatum is broadcast galaxy-wide. Surrender your illegal warships or face extinction. Part 5. The Human Condition, Setting Earth Orbit. the ghost yards, and simultaneously across every human colony, world, and station. New characters. Shatter of Worlds. Supreme Vorthax Fleet Commander, an ancient being who views humanity as an infestation to be cleansed. Prime Illiman Whisper Through Stars, an Illiman leader who begins questioning Vorthax motives. Krell War Chief Garen, a pragmatic Krell commander who respects strength above all. Key plot points. Earth refuses to surrender. Admiral Daejung transmits a message that becomes legendary. Humanity did not crawl from the caves of Earth to bow before those who would watch us die. Come and take them if you can. The Vorthax Armada prepares to attack, but humanity has one more surprise. The Ghost Yards weren't just building 12 ships. They were building facilities across every major asteroid belt in human space. Over 200 human warships from multiple hidden yards emerge across the solar system. They're not all complete. Many are barely functional, but they're there. More crucially, Director Sang-hee releases all classified intelligence to the galactic networks. Proof that the Vorthax orchestrated the Krell raids, sabotaged collective response times, and planned to annex human worlds. The Illiman and several other species recall their fleets from the Vorthax coalition, horrified by the revelations. Ambassador Yuna addresses the Galactic Council, her idealism tempered by hard experience. You wrote laws to control us because you feared us. Then you broke your own laws because you thought us weak. You were wrong on both counts. The Battle of Sol begins, but it's not the massacre Shatter of Worlds expected. Human ships fight with tactics the Vorthax have never encountered. Kamikaze runs, false retreats, coordinated ambushes, psychological warfare. Krell War Chief Garen, watching the battle, makes a stunning decision. His fleet joins the humans, citing the warrior code that demands respect for worthy opponents. Other species begin arriving, not to fight but to witness. The battle becomes a referendum on the entire collective system. Dr. Minji activates a final innovation. The human ships link their gravity sheaths into a network, creating a defensive barrier that the Vorthax cannot penetrate. Shatter of Worlds realizes he cannot win without destroying Earth entirely, which would turn the entire galaxy against the Vorthax. He withdraws.